In this lesson, let's practice an example of using Vlookup in VBA. So I have opened the Go Scorers workbook once again, but this time there is a new sheet called Places of Birth. And we have two columns in it, one with a player's name and another one with their place of birth. So you can open this workbook and you will find it in the resources of this section. And what I would like to do is to insert a column here manually, which I will call place of birth. And I would like to pull the data from this sheet, from this column. So let's very quickly check how the Vlookup function works. Let's in this cell get the place of birth of Cavani. So we can write Vlookup, and the lookup value is the first argument, so we can write here Edinson Cavani. Then the table array, I'm going to select cell A2, and then I will click Ctrl Shift down, and then by holding Ctrl and Shift I will click the right arrow. So we have 899 rows here. Then let's move to the third argument, which is the column index number. What we are interested in is the second column, so I will type in here 2. And finally, we need exact match, so we can either write false or we can write 0. I will write false. Now Excel returns Salto. And I believe this is correct, so I even double checked in Wikipedia. So this seems to be correct. Now if Excel doesn't find a value here, it will return an error. So let's check for my name here, and sometimes I play football with my friends. So if I check for my name, again in this table, in the second column, an exact match, Excel will return an error, NA, are not available. So now, if you want, you can pause the video and attempt this first before watching my solution. Alright, so Alt F11 to enable the Visual Basic Editor, and I will add a new module which I will call using Vlookup, and then let's start writing the subroutine which I will call Vlookup example. And we are working with two worksheets, so maybe it will be easier if we declare two object variables to hold references for these worksheets. So the first one I'm going to call goes WS as worksheet, comma, and the second one, places of birth WS, will be too long name. So I will just call it data WS as worksheet. Now these are object variables, so let's set them. This should be equal to this workbook.worksheets, and the name is Go Scorers. And I'm going to copy this line and paste it here, and then I will copy this variable and place it here and change the name of the worksheet to places of birth. Now let's check the Vlookup function, and its second argument is a table array. So maybe it will be easier if we create a dynamic range and to store in it all cells between A2 to B and whatever the last row is. Now of course I don't want to hard code this A2 to be 899. So that means that we will have to find the last row in this worksheet. But apparently, in order to get the places of birth for each of these footballers, or for those that are present here, because apparently we only have 899 rows here, while in this sheet we have 6383. That means that we will have to loop here, which means that we will have to find the last row of this sheet as well. So that means that let's declare two more variables first. I will call the first one goes last row as long, and the second data last row as long. And let's find them here. I will start typing goes and I will click Control space to show the IntelliSense. And I want to use the goes last row variable, so I will click Tab because it's selected. And now when I start the subroutine later, when it's ready, I cannot be sure which worksheet will be active. So therefore, instead of just writing range A and rows.count and so on, we should qualify this first with the relevant worksheet. So here I will write goes ws.range, and the other part we have written 100 times already. And the same thing is for the data ws, or for the last row of the data worksheet. So in order to avoid typing this, I will copy it and I will change this variable name, and I will change the name of the worksheet. So I would like to know if what we have written so far is correct. So let's print both last rows in the immediate window. Debug.print goes last row, and then debug.print data last row. Now it seems that I have closed the immediate window in one of the previous lessons, so let's go to View and Immediate Window, and now we click Run, and it seems that the goes last row is 6383, which is correct, and then the places of birth are also correct. So I'm going to delete this now, and now we can declare the range to hold reference for this worksheet for all cells between A2 and B, whatever the last row is. So let's declare one more variable. I will call this maybe data range simply as range. And after we have found the last row in this worksheet, we can set it. So I will type in here set data RNG equals to, and once again I cannot simply write range A2 to B and last row, because once I click run I cannot be sure which worksheet will be the active one. So therefore here let's write data ws.range A2. I need all cells from A2 to B and whatever the last row is. So here A2 colon B, close the double quotes, ampersand, data, last row. So now what we can do is to start looping. So basically we're going to loop through all cells in column C in this worksheet, and we're going to apply the Vlookup formula using the cells in column A as a first argument. So that means that we will have to declare one more variable which will serve as a counter inside the loop. And let's write the loop now. So I can write for x equals 2, 2. And now we need to choose to which variable. Well, we're looping in this sheet. So we need to choose to goes last row, next x. And now let's see how to write the Vlookup function. Alright, basically we need to apply the Vlookup function for all cells in column C, and let's make a reference to them first. So we can write here goes ws.range on column C on row x dot value equals to the Vlookup function is an Excel worksheet function, so we can write application dot worksheet function dot Vlookup, and this is going to be a long line, so I will press space and underscore, and on the new line I will click tab. So now we need to write the arguments of this Vlookup function, but unfortunately we don't get that great tooltip here. So let's go back to the places of birth worksheet in order to see the arguments. So the first one is the lookup value, and then we need the table array, then we need the column index, and finally the match type. So the lookup value here will be making references to all cells in column A in this sheet. The table array, this is why we declared our range. And then we have true and false. So back to the Visual Basic editor, and the first argument will be goes ws dot range A on row x dot value. The second argument is this range, so we can write data range. The third argument is 2 because we're interested in the second column in the range, and finally we can either write 0 or false. So I will enable the Go Scorers worksheet, and I will click run, and let's see what's going to happen. We are getting an error run unable to get the Vlookup property of the worksheet function class. But if I go back to the worksheet, I will see that we have managed to get the places of birth of the first 11 football players. So just like I showed you with my name, anytime Excel doesn't find a match for the Vlookup function, it returns an error not available. And when we use Vlookup in VBA, it's similar. But unfortunately, this error interrupts our code. So what we can do to ignore it is simply add on top of this line error resume next. So now I will click run, and I can even delete this, and I will click run, and there aren't any runtime errors. And let's quickly double check. So let's see the date of birth for the place of birth for Messi. So it's Rosario, and let's check it in this sheet as well. And again, it's Rosario. So this is an example of using the Vlookup function. In the next lesson, let's check an example with using index and match in VBA.